proper supplementation, exercise, rest, clean water, air supply, all these things. So the way that I describe it to people is that, it's like you got a big old bucket and you got, all these different sorts of stressors coming into your bucket. Physical stress, chemical stress, and emotional stress. What we do is help your body drain the bucket, or in other words, adapt to that stress load that you have. What this man, Mr. Bill Downs, is an expert in is the toxin part of that, thoughts, traumas, and toxins, the chemical stressors. He helps your body to have what it needs to function properly. I personally don't believe that God makes junk. I believe that your body's supposed to work correctly, and if it's not working correctly, there's a reason for that. So, what I'm saying here, long story short, is that I'm not an expert in nutrition or supplementation. I'm not going to pretend to be that, but we bring in the experts. I don't have anybody speak in this practice. If some of you guys know me, and what we do, I protect it. What we do here, I don't have anybody speak in this practice I don't fully back. Bill has helped myself, my immediate family, my extended family. So I'm excited to share, or have Bill share, exactly what's going on. And he's going to explain that. He's going to stick around to, be able to make sure that you have your questions answered, that things make sense from a nutritional and a supplemental standpoint. I could go on and on about Bill, but just over 90 published research papers. The guy knows what he's talking about. He's been in the industry for a long time. He's seen the good, the bad, and the ugly. And I'm excited for you to hear from him tonight. So I'm going to quit bending your ear and introduce you to Mr. Bill Downs.
All right, so the big question, which Dan already brought up, is why do we get sick and suffer chronic degenerative diseases? Okay, let's explore that. So in order to understand why, we really need to understand what really causes chronic degenerative diseases. So that's me, Bernard William Downs. I go by Bill. I'm not that smart, so I keep the name short. And if you wanted to see my research, that will be a link in PubMed. PubMed, it's a government website, National Institutes of Health, et cetera, et cetera. You can put in Downsby and you get to see my work that's published in PubMed. I'm in other indexes as well, but I have about, of the 94 papers I have, I think 32 of them are in PubMed, which is, again, a government website. So, and if you want to know how to do this, you go to Google, in the search bar you type in PubMed and hit enter, then you'll see a homepage link, and then in the, once you open that link, you can just type in the PubMed search, Downs space B. You need to save this website, not the Downs B, but PubMed. If you ever want to find out anything about any issue, whether it's a researcher, whether it's a condition, whether it's a product, an ingredient, whether it's a drug, doesn't matter, you can use PubMed, because that is probably the most authoritative library of scientific information in the world. That's Medline Online, actually. So let's take a look at the latest research that's accepted for publication. Safety and efficacy of N-Sorb, a proprietary KD120 multi-enzyme complex, metabolically activated enzyme formulation, a randomized, double-blind, placebo-controlled study. I'm the lead author on that. It's been accepted for publication in the Journal of the American College of Nutrition just this few weeks ago. I forgot to bring I was going to bring a book. I wrote a chapter in a book called Phytopharmaceuticals for Brain Health, CRC Press, Taylor Francis. And the chapter that I wrote, they made chapter 1. And the issue about the chapter, let me see if I wrote it, yeah. A hidden etiological nemesis of chronic neurodegenerative diseases, chapter 1. Etiology is the original cause. So an etiological nemesis is the real problems behind things like multiple sclerosis, Lou Gehrig's disease, Parkinson's, Alzheimer's, encephalitis, meningitis, Bell's palsy, etc. It's the herpes virus, by the way. So you don't have to read that now.
What, Bell's palsy?
What?
Did you say Bell's palsy?
Yes.
Yeah.
Is it herpes thing?
Yeah.
Is that just,
Yep.
where did that come from?
If you had chickenpox, you have the virus.
Oh yeah, I've had chickenpox.
Sure.
Well,
Yeah.
sort of, almost.
This young lady,
I
also
had
a thin,
Bell's
fat, black,
palsy.
white Asian.
Really
lady here.
severe as a child for over a year.
Really?
Yes.
I was lucky. I bounced back most of the way in 2 weeks.
Yeah.
But my face and my head is still numb.
Yeah, it's a herpes virus.
I didn't know that.
Yeah. And that's the reason they made the chapter 1, because they didn't know it either.
Jeez.
So, and the book that's coming out probably in spring is Fat, Sugar, and Salt in Human Health. My chapter is Anemia, Influence of Dietary Fat, Sugar, and Salt on Hemoglobin and Blood Health. And I don't know what chapter it's going to be yet. So there's some interesting stuff here. I've been in the nutrition industry a long time, and I find that people tend to jump to conclusions with very little information. And I'm going to ask you to not jump to conclusion, and I have this little video, it's about a minute long, that's going to punctuate the reason why you should not jump to conclusions.
This has a fractured fibula. Well, Saturday. So I could be able to go on tomorrow.
He's gonna be so excited. That killed him.
Oh, jeez.
Don't jump to conclusions, okay? Don't judge too quickly. So, here is a true statement. If you want to find the best solution, you must first be able to accurately state or define the problem, or describe the problem. This was said by a guy that everybody thinks is pretty smart. It was Albert Einstein. So, let's get back to the question that was asked earlier. What is the primary cause of chronic degenerative diseases? Is it free radicals, inflammation, being too acid, inability of cells to make energy, cell adhesion molecules, the technical term is sticky boogers, bacteria, viruses, parasites, mold, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. What really causes chronic disease? By the way, these are factors in chronic disease, but they're not the cause. So what is the cause? All chronic degenerative diseases are caused by, I feel like we need a drum roll right here, an inability to effectively use oxygen or water. That's simple. It's no more complex. You're made of air, water, sunshine, and food. The end. That's it. So the quality of your health is a reflection of the quality of what you're putting into your body. These are the two most, oxygen and water are the two most important substances for life. So these are terms that are equal. Hypoxic means without oxygen. Anaerobic means without oxygen. Acidic means without oxygen. So therefore, we can call any chronic disease, it doesn't matter what the name is. It could be cancer, cardiovascular disease, diabetes, arthritis, etc., etc. We can call it suffocating cell syndrome. Because that's what's happening. Can't use oxygen, can't use water. So suffocating cell syndrome results in impaired metabolism. Metabolism is the ability to make energy, manage energy, and get rid of waste. And suffocating cell syndrome impairs that process. So factors that impair the ability to use oxygen or water. Nutrient deficiencies, and things that cause stress to the body, as Dan had mentioned earlier. Intellectual, emotional, psychological factors, environmental, chemical insult, and physical strain and trauma. All impose stress on the body. And then we have genetic predispositions. All of these factors increase the need for and the rate of nutrient depletion. So we'll look at nutrient deficiency. So we want to look at what happens to food from the time it's planted in the field until it gets to our mouths. We have this little thing in our country called factory farms, otherwise known as agribusiness. The objective of agribusiness is to produce more food, make it look better, and make it last longer. It's not about your health. It's about commercial viability. The number one addiction of the human species is greed. And it plays out in our food supply process, the growing, the distribution, etc. So we're now looking at a vast amount of mineral depleted soils. Keep in mind, 98% of the domestically produced food comes from the same 2% of land mass every year, year in, year out. So they have to resort to using chemical fertilizers, pesticides, herbicides like Roundup, fungicides, bactericides, genetically modified organisms, irradiation, which is killing anything that can spoil the food, although they didn't do that in food that I ate. Gassing, coloring agents. Florida oranges, when they're picked green, and they actually color them to look orange. Preservatives, flavor enhancers, functional food extenders. So my wife and I were at an IFT conference. IFT is the Institute of Food Technologists back in the late 90s, I think it was. And we're walking down an aisle, and there's a little company called Cargill. Cargill is one of the largest manufacturing functional food ingredients in the industry. And the booth for this company was bigger than this office. Huge booth. And there was an attractive young lady with with a plate with little tidbits with toothpicks in them, standing there giving out samples. I have one genetic flaw. I'm originally a redneck from Georgia, so, and I'll say it in my Georgia accent, fried foods ain't getting past me. So I took this little tidbit, I put it in my mouth, and I ate it. My wife did you take one? No, my wife didn't take one.
I'm a food snob.
And she's a food snob. But it was really tasty. And I said to the girl, I said, this is really good. And she proudly begins to tell me that they use the meat of one chicken and their functional food ingredient to create enough of these little tidbits as if it came from 12 chickens. It's 1/12 chicken meat. And standing about from me to you is the buyer from McDonald's giving his rep a purchase order. That was chicken McNuggets. 1/12 chicken meat. No, artificial. Looks like chicken, tastes like chicken, feels like chicken, smells like chicken, moist like chicken, but it ain't chicken.
It's a little bit chicken.
A little bit chicken. And then tenderizers, everybody knows about MSG. Food processing and fast food outlets. So we buy food now that's in package, frozen and things like that. And then we go to the McDonald's and the Burger King and the Taco Bell and the Wendy's and all that kind of stuff, which are indigenous. So this is what is making up our bodies. So I'm hoping you're starting to get the picture as to why we have chronic disease. So Roundup is the most widely used herbicide in the world under different names in different countries, by the way. This is an article from USA Today, August the 10th of last year. A jury ordered the chemical giant Monsanto to pay $289 million to a school groundskeeper who got terminal cancer after using Roundup. The Superior Court jury deliberated for 2.5 days before finding Dwayne Johnson's non-Hodgkin's lymphoma was at least partly due to using glyphosate, which is the primary ingredient in Roundup. Johnson regularly used glyphosate to spray fields while working as a groundskeeper. Monsanto, in the court proceedings, they found Monsanto knew since 1981 that Roundup caused cancer in laboratory animals.
I used that for a long time when I was doing landscaping,
Yeah,
for about 10 years.
bad stuff.
Used it every day.
Probably without gloves.
Glyphosate destroys the ability of cells to use oxygen and water. And it destroys cell structure as well. So, as we look at the types of therapeutic approaches, there's only 2 types of therapeutic approaches, of therapeutic paradigms. Number 1 is navigational therapy. That's the input of influence that navigates the body to correct a problem. There's a vast difference between treating effects and adjusting the cause. That's on the wall as well. Chiropractic is a navigational therapy, an effective navigational therapy. And then there's foundational therapies, the intake of resources essential for optimal life function. All that stuff on the previous slide is just degrading your body's ability to function the way it's supposed to. So again, air, water, sunshine, and food, and the supplements that come from that. So provide the necessary resources, and optimal health is the body's ability to achieve the ideal biological environment. When you have the ideal biological environment, you have the optimal ability to use oxygen and water for cells to make energy, manage energy, and eliminate waste as they do their jobs. So this is a plug here for what Dr. Dan and the crew here do, and Dr. Jarrett. Please don't make your doctor deal with a greater challenge than already exists. A healthy nutritional foundation will enable the body to better hold the corrections needed as a result of the diligent diagnostic research and scientifically applied chiropractic treatments. So we want to nourish the body with all the resources needed to maintain the ideal environment inside the body that will support a happy, healthy, functioning metabolism. Now we're going to get into metabolism. So what do enzymes do? Enzymes are considered the sparks of life. So therefore, metabolism equals enzyme activity. The number one most prevalent group of health maladies in our culture, anybody want to guess what that is?
Obesity,
Digestive problems. Number one reason for emergency room visits after accidents. Number one reason for doctor visits. Number one most purchased over-the-counter med. Number one most prescribed drug for a legitimate medical cause. You know, we have to disqualify things like Cialis and Viagra for recreation at best. That means the most expensive supplement is the one that doesn't work, no matter what you paid for it, because you can't get in, because your digestive system is impaired, and of course, tablets and things like that are really hard to break down. So these are supplements that were taken out of a bedpan.
Yeah.
Okay. So what do enzymes do? All of the hundreds of thousands of chemical transactions of metabolism that take place every moment in your body are executed by a vast array of enzymes. Thousands upon thousands of enzymes. Therefore, that means therefore, by the way, enzymes equal metabolism equal life. So let's take a look at how your body works when you eat food. So there's your, well, this doesn't, there's your esophagus right there. So you eat food, and the food goes into the cardiac region, also known as the food enzyme stomach. And it's there for about 15, 20 minutes. And the enzymes in food begin and advance the process of disintegrating and dissolving the food in your stomach. Then it goes down to the fundic region, which is actually probably just a tad lower, and a chemical analysis takes place to see what's still there that needs to be digested. And that's when your pancreas pumps enzymes into the stomach with the right amount of acid to turn this into something called chyme. And then over this process, it moves along into the pyloric region, and it's turned into something called chyme. Trypsin, chymotrypsin, pepsin, things like that finish the job. And then it goes into the small intestine, the duodenum, which is where most of the nutrients are extracted. However, one little problem here. We cook food. Heat kills enzymes. What that means is that no effective digestion takes place in the food enzyme stomach, that cardiac region. Therefore, the entire and excessive burden of disintegrating and dissolving foods falls entirely on the fundic region and the poor pancreas. How many people have seen ads for things like Nexium and Prilosec and Prevacid? They're proton pump inhibitors. Proton is another term for hydrogen, which is acid without oxygen. So here's what your digestive system does. Your digestive system must be able to tell the difference between you and not you foods. It must be able to tell the difference between good not you and bad not you. It must be able to break down and turn good not you into you. It must be able to eliminate the waste of that conversion process and protect you from those waste and bad not you while providing all the building materials to make the best you. This is why 70 to 80% of your immune system lymphatic tissue is in your digestive system. It's an amazing revelation. So if your digestive system is struggling, so is your immune system. And one other thing that I don't talk about right here is that you have more neurotransmitters in your gut than you have in your brain. So if you have digestive problems, your brain is being distressed. So back in the 1930s, the Canadian government feared that the Aboriginal Eskimo race was in danger of extinction. They commissioned a study to compile official information on the health of the Eskimo with the idea of preventing extinction of the race. Here's what they found. Eskimos living in the most northern regions of Canada, the southern Arctic, having ideal hunting conditions, eat almost all their food raw, like seal, walrus, caribou, fish, etc. These Eskimos get much of their vegetables out of the stomachs of the animals that they eat. Anybody a hunter in here? Anytime you ever got an animal, it is a very unpleasant experience. Imagine they're eating this stuff up there. It's pretty digestive. Conversely, Eskimos living more than 700 miles to the south where hunting conditions are poor eat a large amount of flour and refined packaged food. Most of them are wards of Canadian government and on Canadian welfare. So they get a lot of packaged food. So physicians found that Eskimos living in the most northern regions of Canada, who eat all their food raw, never suffered from arthritis or other chronic diseases, never had a single case of cancer malignancy during the 7 years of research in the region. Leukemia was non-existent. Gastric and duodenal ulcer, acute and chronic nephritis, and scurvy are extremely rare. Teeth and gums are in excellent condition. No cavities, no gum disease. Rheumatic fever, asthma, and the common cold are almost non-existent. There's no tradition of medicine men among the Aboriginal Eskimo, because they eat all their food raw. They get an abundance of enzymes in the raw food. So the consumption of raw food is body friendly, having the enzymes needed to disintegrate and dissolve foods for optimal utilization by the body. For example, leukemia is a classic area for the study of raw foods diet. Genetically predisposed individuals will develop leukemia on a poor quality diet, but raw food will help alleviate the condition by eliminating the excess white blood cells produced that would lead to leukemia because of the cooked food. Cooked food burdens the immune system. So everyone is born with a certain genetic capacity or potential to make enzymes. This is called the enzyme reserve. It's also known as the enzyme or metabolic bank account. It's like being born with $10,000 to use for life. When the money's gone, you're out of here. The consumption of refined, heated, processed food persistently overdraws and depletes our enzyme reserve. As the enzyme reserve diminishes, the quality of life diminishes and chronic diseases develop. Severe end-stage disease ultimately results. When total enzyme bankruptcy occurs, you're dead. Enzymes are the spark of life. Okay? So, what causes reflux, GERD, heartburn, indigestion, which we take antacids for? So, remember that scenario of how the food is getting in the cardiac region, the fundic region, the pyloric region, and there's a chemanalysis that takes place, and pancreas pumps enzymes. So after periods of time, when your poor pancreas is getting really tired and can't meet the enzymatic demands, you've got to break the food down. You cannot allow undigested food to proceed through the system. So what the body does is it makes a whole lot more acid to burn the food, and that gives you acid upset stomach, heartburn, indigestion, GERD, reflux. And so you take a Tums, a Rolaids, or a Nexium, or a Prilosec, or a Prevacid to reduce the acid. You just shut down the digestive process altogether.
I have acid reflux.
Yeah, well,
Heavy dose of Xanthan.
yeah, Xantac's another one. So what we want to do is fix the enzyme insufficiencies, rejuvenate your body. Yes, sir.
Does diabetes have anything to do with that? Pancreas?
Well, it would, because that's, you know, the beta cells in the aisles of Langerhans in the pancreas that make insulin.
Right.
So that would, an exhausted pancreas is not like exhausted here and doing really well over here. When your pancreas is beaten up, it leads to other impairments.
And pancreatitis too.
So decreased enzyme levels are found in all chronic ailments such as allergy, skin disease, even serious diseases like cardiovascular disease, diabetes, and cancer. Food enzyme deficiency causes exaggerated maturation or premature development of today's children and teenagers. Like 13-year-old boys that look like they need to have a bra. Food enzyme deficiency is an important cause of overweight in many children. In fact, it was impossible to get people fat on raw foods, regardless of calorie intake. In animals consuming enzyme-deficient foods, the thyroid has been shown to over-enlarge even in the presence of adequate iodine. Another adverse effect of food enzyme deficiency is that the size of the brain has been shown to decrease. I take a lot of enzymes. It's still not as big as my wife's brain now. So if food enzymes are not ingested and available to carry the burden of digestion and metabolism, the entire burden must be borne solely by enzymes made by the body, and this is what exhausts your metabolism. It's what wears you out quicker. This depletes the enzyme reserve. Thus, the enzyme reserve decreases with increasing age, and such decreases accelerate even more rapidly and dramatically in many diseases. And of course, if you're eating contaminated food, that doesn't help. The enzyme-producing power of the enzyme reserve of the organism is fixed within a definite limits. The speed of metabolism is determined by the quantity of enzymes being used up. So the greater the rate of metabolism, the more enzymes are required to participate, and consequently, the greater the quantity of enzymes will be used up and depleted. An interesting fact here, a side fact, is that the subpopulation of individuals that have the highest rate of cancer, anybody want to take a guess what that might be? Time's up. What would you say?
Subpopulation, you're saying?
The subpopulation, elite athletes,
Oh.
have the highest rate of cancer.
Steroid rates, though.
Huh?
Steroid rates.
They're not all on steroids.
No. Just because of the heavy demands of performance, of elite performance, just burn out the body's enzyme potential. Increases in metabolic activity, whether associated with fever, accelerated heart action, increased food intake, physical exercise, and muscular work, or pregnancy causes increased enzyme loss in the urine. In all fever conditions and stresses to the body, metabolism is speeded up and enzyme activity is likewise increased, with enzymes being depleted. We have to replace the enzymes. So metabolic distress. To deal with the burden of refined agribusiness foods, the body's digestive organs must bear the entire burden of disintegrating and dissolving all the refined, processed, dead food stuff. You're going to find this really interesting. This process imposes strenuous efforts to convert dead foodstuffs into living tissue. This causes strained and much larger internal organs. Medically, they call it organomegaly. Normal liver, fatty liver, cirrhotic liver. That's what happens inside your body. So this is an interesting study that was done at the Potter Metabolic Clinic in Santa Barbara, California. They regularly obtained a high percentage of favorable responses in indigestion, abdominal gas, eczema, hives, and you'll see a bunch of other conditions here. The degree of response may be judged from the following table. So, 34 cases of bronchial asthma, just taking large amounts of enzymes, 88% improved. 12 cases of food asthma, 92% improved. 42 cases of eczema, 83% improved. Are there any drugs that are this successful in a short period of time? 19 cases of hay fever, 80% improved. 11 cases of loose bowels, 100% improved. 54 normal weight individuals remain constant. Their weight remained constant. 29 overweight, 93% improved. You think if this information got out into the Jenny Craigs and the Weight Watchers and all that kind of stuff, it'd make a significant difference?
They'd hide it.
Getting more enzymes. You need more enzymes. An underweight, 91% gained weight. And then hives, 29 cases of hives, 86% improved. This is just astonishing. So N-Sorb, which is the packet Kim showed you that you have, is a breakthrough proprietary system of protosomed diet essential enzymes. Protosoming is a process of encapsulating them in essentially a cell membrane, phospholipid membrane, kind of like a liposome, but a whole lot better. The protosomes are customized exclusively for the N-Sorb. So N-Sorb has completed a clinical study on the effectiveness and safety. It was presented at Experimental Biology Conference in April of 2017, published in the Experimental Biology Journal. A follow-up clinical case study on the same subjects was completed a year later, presented at Harvard University, and published in the Journal of Functional Foods for Chronic Disease. And we just completed a study on N-Sorb looking at immune and cardiometabolic parameters in humans. And it's been accepted for publication, as you just saw. It's in press in the Journal of the American College of Nutrition. And we give it to animals as well. My dog gets...
She loves it.
She loves N-Sorb. So these are the poster sessions that I presented at. So again, metabolism is a process by which cells use oxygen, water, and nutrients to make energy, manage energy, and eliminate waste. So we need to replenish the enzyme reserve. And this does have an effect on your digestion, by the way, in order to reactivate and revitalize your metabolism. Digestion is just the first really important step of metabolism. So N-Sorb is protosomed. It is a genuine breakthrough in absorption capabilities. We showed in another clinical study on a different product that I talked about last week, for those that may have been here last week, that we showed that the protosoming process gets nutrients into the blood within 5 minutes of putting it in your mouth. It's really a remarkable achievement. So the N-Sorb is patent pending. Diet essential is the enzyme complex. When taken under the tongue, N-Sorb gets rapidly absorbed into the body and quickly sent to the body's tissues, replenishing the enzyme reserve. It promotes metabolic strength, immunity, digestive health, and vitality. It's formulated with stable acid-resistant enzymes. The enzymes in N-Sorb, like most of your enzymes, are engineered to work in a digestive environment, a pH of 2 to 5.5. The N-Sorb enzymes are engineered to work in a pH of 6.5 to 8.5 in the tissues. And your digestive system has the largest supply of blood in the body. So that's why the N-Sorb is helping to revitalize and support digestive function, because it's getting into the GI tract via the blood supply. It's rapidly absorbed into the blood, supports intestinal health, promotes metabolism, immunity, and digestive competence. So revitalize your metabolism. The protosome-activated multi-enzyme complex supports immune function, metabolism, and digestion. It's not a weight loss product. However, changes in body composition can occur, as you saw in the one study, changes in body mass index. The end. Thank you. Questions?
How expensive is the product?
Excuse me?
How much does it cost?
So is what's in here like the same enzymes that you get in other supplements, but the key is the formulation that makes it absorbable?
It's engineered, and the protosoming. The protosoming, have you ever heard of liposome?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, this is, uses a liposome platform. Liposomes are phospholipids. So what is a phospholipid? If you were making your own oil from, you had a mill or a grinder and you ground the seeds and you got your own fresh oil, it'd be loaded with phospholipids. By the way, fish oils don't have phospholipids in them. Plant oils have phospholipids. Your cells, all the cell membranes in all the soft tissues of your body are made of phospholipids. And all the membranes of the intracellular organelles. Your cell's jam-packed. I mean, just for a moment, stop and think how complex the structure of a cell is. You've got, when we think of a cell, we think of like a balloon with stuff floating around inside of it. There's something in the cell called a mitochondria, which is what makes energy, okay? So a thumb muscle cell has maybe 3 to 6 mitochondria per cell. A heart cell has up to 600 mitochondria per cell. A brain cell has up to 30,000 mitochondria per cell. Okay, that's just the mitochondria. That's not the nucleus, that's not the endoplasmic reticulum, the Golgi apparatus, et cetera, et cetera. The stuff is jam-packed in these cells. Because there's a big job they have to do. They're the source of your life existence, life energy. So all of those organelles, the cell wall, the membranes, the intracellular organelles, the membrane are phospholipids. So we take phospholipids, first thing we do is we create structured water. We run it at a high velocity. We spin it around at about 20,000 RPMs. Now why is that important? Because you have 1.5 gallons of blood in your body, give or take, and it's circulating through an elaborate network, a minimum of 60,000 miles of blood vessels. If you took it weighed about end to end. And your blood makes, when you're healthy, and only when you're healthy, it makes one complete revolution from the top of your head to the tip of your toe, back to the top of your head, every 20 to 60 seconds. It's awesome. We are fearfully and wonderfully made. It's amazing. And that velocity is a property. That's essentially 800 miles a second. That's really wild. And that velocity itself is a property of health. And when you know, what makes a pond stagnant?
It's still,
Water doesn't move.
right.
Water doesn't move, still water. Okay, same thing in the blood. When the blood stops having that velocity, we start feeling poorly. We get sick. The blood gets sludged up, gets thick, and we take blood thinners and anticoagulating agents and water pills and
Baby
blood pressure
aspirins.
meds. They don't fix a thing. They medicate a symptom. Remember, the mandate for the medical community is to relieve suffering. It's not to fix the cause of the problem. Okay? You're made of air, water, sunshine, and food. You can only fix the cause of the problem by supplying the body with what it needs to do the job that God designed it genetically to do, to carry out those genetic instructions.
So